Job chapter 1, verse 16 from the King James Version. And it reads, "While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, The fire of God is fallen from heaven, and hath burned up the sheep and the servants, and consumed them. And I only am escaped alone to tell thee." We'd like to speak this morning from the thought, the fire of God. The fire of God. The fire of God. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. We have gotten so in the modern church that as soon as we hear a passage of Scripture, we right away believe that we know what is about to be said. Well, the main point of Job's calamities is either entirely missed by the modern expositor, or if not missed, it is clearly understated. Job's problems were caused by God.
Yes, sir.
I have often marveled about the Christian caliber of those men. Job and his friends. It was so long ago, at least 4,000 years, Michael Sullivan, and they had no written revelation to speak of. There was no Old or New Testament, and yet their beliefs, though they had no Bible, their beliefs were not mired in superstition, or even mired in a vague, general, or natural revelation about God. These men knew God. They even knew how to approach God. The ancient discussions of Job with Bildad, Zophar, Eliphaz, and Elihu, they form the heart of our modern understanding of God the Father. Job and his friends, though they had no written revelation, they discussed God with theological precision, though theology had not even come into being. They also knew the intimacy of having a right relationship with God as they acknowledged God's power and God's sovereignty, even over the most minute details of everyday life. Job and his friends knew the Bible, or had their understanding of God better than we do, and yet we have the Bible. Now, Deacon Nichols, here it is. To say that Job's calamities, or even this book of Job's, is about the patience of Job, now that's to remain in the nursery of Christianity. If that's what you say it is about, let us open the door, for you're not fit for the sanctuary. We need to send you over to the nursery. Now, Sister Relaford, to say that the book is about trials and tribulations, that's better, but it's still lacking. This book and what it details about Job's life is about God. And it's about how God deals with those who are his. If you didn't know, When you read the verse under our consideration, you now know. This was God's work. And if Job didn't know, now he knew. This brings me to my first point, and it's a doozy for folk who don't know. Your problems, here it is, are caused or allowed by God. You see, some of us are stuck in the nursery of Christianity. You see, I'm not saying you're not saved. You are saved. But your understanding of God and of yourself has not evolved to the place where you can accept that problems in our lives or in your life are allowed or even caused by God. Sometimes our thinking is so elementary that we believe that if we do good, come on, brother. Job said, if I fast enough, if I hustle about a heart, then we and our families will live in prosperity. They will live in security, Reverend Giles, because I done put all them around the outside the house. Yeah. I've covered the house with the blood. So you're going to live in prosperity forever. See, that's Job and his family. In Job chapter 1, verses 1 through 5, everybody wants some insurance that everything is going to go well. They live in peace and prosperity, namely because, Michael Sullivan, Job is perfect, upright, he fears God, he stays away from evil. So in my nursery school mind, I say, ain't nothing bad going to happen to Job. You see, the implication is that Job's righteousness, or rather from his acts of repentance, flowed all of this abundance, all of this material substance. In other words, all the protection for his children and his property. In other words, if I pray every night, all will be well. God blesses us for our good acts toward him and our good acts toward one another. And isn't this how we first come to God? We want the safety and the security. Indeed, we want the blessings brought about by obedience. And Brother Tardy, that's good, but that's only a kindergarten understanding. Kindergarten. Cry baby, cry baby. Kindergarten understanding of ourselves and a kindergarten understanding of God. This understanding does not account for the fact, Sister Smith, that bad things happen to righteous people. Job about to learn that lesson, but that kindergarten understanding doesn't account for that. It also doesn't account for the fact, Sister Giles, that wicked people, people whose actions and attitudes, that low down, Antonio Bernard would call her a heifer cow, that low down heifer, sometimes prospers. Yes. So when we don't understand life, when we're confused about life, it means that God is trying to promote us. He is promoting us from our kindergarten crybaby understanding of Christianity. I like to say that so-and-so Baptist church down the road, that's the kindergarten. And when you get ready for some real substance to cut your teeth on some real meat, you promote it to 180 Oak Ridge Road. Yes, come on, man. Whenever I'm confused in life, and I know I'm saved, Sister Summers, always means that God is teaching me. And when I'm being taught, it means that I have outgrown the season of life that I was in. You see, the issue, Deacon Hart, is that we like the safety and security of kindergarten. In kindergarten, everything's so simple. When somebody hits you, you hit them back. If they bigger than you are, you tell the teacher. But what happens when the teacher got it in for you? Somebody hit you, you tell the teacher got it in for you. Then who do you tell? Oh, that was Job's problem. He could blame the Sabaeans for the loss of his oxen and his asses. Yes, he could, because they stole them. He could blame them for the loss of his camels. Perhaps he could blame the weather for the tragic loss of his children. But what he couldn't do was blame anybody but God for the loss of his sheep. The servant said plainly, and the Bible records it, the fire of God, not a whirlwind, not the Sabaeans, not the Chaldeans, but the fire of God, the very hand of God, come down from heaven. The record reads it fell from heaven. Same word that describes the fire of God falling on Pentecost is used here in verse 16. Fell from heaven. In its destructive aspect, burned up the sheep. Not only that, burned the servants handling the sheep. The Bible reads it consumed them. What I'm trying to say is this. It ought to become so plain to each of you on this journey that God is the one who is allowing your confusion and the situation that you see as a problem.
All right. All right.
Can you hear me in the back? You say, I prayed, and God heard you, and he heard you, and he's still doing it. Yes. This brings me to my second point. Hear it and hear it well. You ready? Only good things come from heaven for the believer. Now, Bernard, you seem to be contradicting what you've been saying. Because how can loss be good? How can the loss of my marriage, the loss of my job, the loss of my health, the loss right now of my happiness, and sometimes the loss of my sanity, how can that be good? How can confusion be good? You see, Job is now confused. Because to his own recollection and to God, he's perfect. He's upright. Yes. Sister Parker, he fears God and he stays away from evil. And yet in Job's mind, evil has come upon him. Certainly Job could blame Satan, but the fire didn't come from hell. Didn't say the fire came up. Say the fire fell down from heaven. Now he could blame the Sabaeans, like we like to blame folk, right? Can I talk in here? It's a natural part of your development, William James, to blame folk for your problems. Can I preach in here? Yeah, it's good to blame other folk. That's a part of your progression, blaming folk. But when you run out of folk to blame, you realize it ain't but really one somebody you can lay the blame at. He could blame the Sabaeans, he could blame the Chaldeans, but it came from heaven. You can even beat on yourself, but it came from heaven. You see, we come out of the nursery of Christianity when we stop blaming other children for hitting us. When we stop complaining to the teacher about being hit. The teacher turned the other way, allowed us to be hit, and then when we went to the teacher, she didn't punish the one who did it, and in fact, she allowed him to keep hitting us. What are you trying to say? I'm trying to say this, Brother Philippian. I'm trying to say that God will make you uncomfortable in your kindergarten Christianity.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir.
You see, Reverend Giles, there was a time we could read Romans 8 and 28. All things work together for good. We recite it like poetry. And we took that to mean that we would never experience, Sister Daniels, anything evil ever if I was doing good. Then, Cynthia, we read the 110th Psalm, verse 1. God will make your enemy your footstool.
Yes.
And if the Bible don't work, we get to talk about karma. We quote Isaiah 54 and 17. No weapon formed against you will prosper. Put that circle of oil around you. And then we'd pray to God to deal with our enemies. Well, Job didn't do this. Any of this, Sister Pruitt. Because he knew that all of his calamities had come from God. Not just the fire. The fire was given for us because we slow to catch on. But he knew it all came from God. The only way we can reconcile a good God letting bad things happen to us is to know that what we are busy resisting is not only good for us, but it's necessary. What you busy fighting against, praying against, is not only good for you, it's necessary. Here it is. Only good things come from heaven, including the fire of God.
Yes, sir.
Only good things come from heaven, including the fire. See, you can't control fire. Call all the fire trucks you want. God's presence, His power, His holiness are often symbolized by fire. God allowed the basic problem in my life. And I need you to understand that as a Christian, God is teaching you how to be a problem solver. And you can solve the problem if you view it as necessary for your development. Can I talk in here? Sometimes stuff happens, we say, God made a mistake. But if you doubt that the problem is necessary for your development, you're going to have a problem. If you want to be a problem solver, you cannot doubt that the issue came from God, even though it might have been handed down through somebody else. Can I talk in here? Might have come through some different hands, but it came ultimately from God. If I doubt that it came from God, I'm going to end up blaming and fighting other folks who were only used as God's instruments. All hatefulness, unforgiveness directed toward folk, you have not realized that those folk were used as God's instruments in your development. Is it all right to preach in here? So any hate directed toward them is really directed toward God. Any unforgiveness pointed toward folk is really pointed toward God, because they were merely instruments in the hands of God. You want to be a problem solver? Understand that it came from God. So you can't doubt where it came from. You didn't choose the family you were born in. You didn't choose the mama you had, the daddy you had, the stuff they did to you when you couldn't defend yourself. You can't doubt that that came from God. Number two, you can't doubt that it was ultimately good for you.
Yes. Come on.
See, God put that thing in your life for it to do a work on you. Can I talk in here? Yeah. For it to do a work on you. But if you're busy denying it or resisting it, then you won't be able to solve the problem or be able to become what it is that God is pushing you to become to get you out of the nursery. If you believe that everything that God allows in your life that seems bad at first and you can't fix it, if you believe that it is ultimately good for you, then you'll learn to live with it and the lessons that it brings. Did you hear that? If you know it's ultimately good, and the scripture says it is, you stop trying to deny it. Stop fighting it. Stop resisting it. And then you'll learn the lessons that you need to learn to get out the nursery.
Yes, sir.
If not, Sister McGriggs, you'll spend your days being miserable, fighting it, and ultimately fighting against God.
Yes, sir.
This is the very definition of not having peace. Why am I not in peace? You keep asking God because you keep fighting what God has put in your life. We got to accept the fact, Sister Robbins, that only good things come from heaven, even if they burn up the sheep. Can you hear me on the back row? Only good things come from heaven, even if they burn up the sheep. This brings me to my third point. Hear it well. You ready? Here it is. Not all fire is judgment. Fires result in loss. We either lose people or we lose property. You see, we think about the fire and the brimstone that fell on Sodom and Gomorrah for their sins. See, we all remember that from the kindergarten of Christianity. And in the kindergarten of Christianity, we equate fire ultimately with the lake of fire, which is the eternal place of torment for unbelievers. These two seminal events and our collective Christian psyches cause us to think of all fire and all loss as judgment. And that's what Job was arguing against. He said that the punishment that he was receiving was not fair, considering that he had no known outward sin. And if there were any sin in his life, Job argued they were not big enough that he had to be punished by taking everything he had. Well, Lincoln Brown, because what comes from heaven is good for the believer, not all fire is judgment. Fire for the believer purifies. Some Negro need to be burned out your life. Fire purifies, it cleans, and it also burns away trash. You lost your apartment because you was laying up there with a Negro that didn't want to marry you. You got put off the lease, he got put off the lease, and y'all got put out. Fire, loss, tribulations, trials may be from the cleansing of sin, our impurities. But like Job, that fire is usually to burn up things that are hindering you. It's for the burning away of the trash in your life. Now, some of us nasty. We like trash. Trash represent old mindsets. Can I talk in here? I can tell you something right now, 4, 5 of you that's trash in your life. You'll argue me up one side and down another. And God say, wait a minute, Bernard, I can show him better than you can tell him.
Yes, sir.
Old mindsets. Old ways of thinking that you hold on to that's not good for you. Even when the lives of believers get too complicated, too cluttered, God will start a fire.
Yes.
One of them fires that Deacon Vessel started in an old barrel. You see, we think these things are valuable. And we mourn them. Be sitting around crying, talking to the Lord about it. Lord, why you do me like this? Lord, you let me lose my job. Lord, why I got to go through this? Why am I confused like I am?
Yes, sir.
You see, it wasn't the loss of the sheep, the oxen, the camel, or even his children. It was the loss, Deacon Nichols, of what they represented to Job.
Yes, sir.
You see, Sister Sandals, when we straddle both sides of the fence, not saying Job did, but some of us do. When we straddle both sides of the fence, we need some kind of security. Can I talk in here? I ain't trying to trust God all the way, so I'm going to keep my camel, my sheep, my oxen. I'm going to keep the good job I got. I'm going to keep some of them worldly friends y'all keep telling me to let go. Can I preach in here?
Yes.
You see, Brother Philippian, with God, it's either an all or nothing proposition. If we're going to ride or die. You ain't going to be my sometimes ride share. You're going to ride with Satan sometime. You're going to ride with me at other times.
Yes, sir.
You see, we got these trophies
Come on, Pastor.
that we earned of God because of good behavior. All these things we have are trophies. Well, God takes trophies because we value them more than we value him. Can I talk in here? Some of y'all say you were trusting God. No, you was trusting that trophy. You were trusting God as far as you could see him, but you had that trophy because you had one foot in with God and the other foot in with them.
Yes.
But Griggs, it ain't about where we live. It ain't about where we work. It ain't about how much money we make. It ain't even about to whom we're married or not married. When it all boils down to it, it's about one thing. And he didn't take that from you.
All right.
You're crying about everything else, but he's still there. He didn't go anywhere.
That's right.
You're crying and moaning about the trophy you lost. And God is asking, can you love me amid a string of losses?
Yes.
Can you trust God enough to know that what he seems to be taking from you is ultimately for your good?
Yes, sir.
He's saying, can you trust me? Evidently, you didn't think you could. So I had to burn your stuff up to show you that you can. The author of the book of Hebrews put it this way in Hebrews 12 and 27. He says, all will be shaken and removed so that only unshakable or unburnable, inflammable things will remain. You see, Job had not lost anything that he would ultimately need.
All right.
What God took from you, did you really need it?
Come on, Pastor.
Is it all right to preach in here? I'm asking a question this morning. If what God took from you that you were vehemently holding on to, ultimately, and you holding on to it, Talking about the patience of Job. I'm just going to hold on. Fool, you need to let go. He said, that ain't for you. Can I talk in here? Now you going up one side, down another, trying to please Negroes, holding on to something that God ultimately going to shake you loose from. Now that man told you he wasn't going to marry you, but you stand over to his house late at night, going back in the morning before day, running after that man, cutting your hair, letting him drive your car, doing whatever you think need to be done to keep that Negro, and God says, I'm going to burn him up.
Yes, sir. Yes. Yes.
The fire of God is not always judgment. For the believer, it consumes what's necessary. Interestingly, the fire of God can feel like a judgment when it really isn't. Can feel that way. Just as pruning can feel like it's destroying the whole tree, but it isn't. It's preparing the tree for new growth. You see, when we suffer loss sometimes, we feel ashamed as others look upon us and judge us like Job's friends judged him to be a sinner. Can I talk in here? A lot of times it ain't about what you lost. It's because God did it out in the open.
All right. All right. Yes, sir.
I can say stuff to Sister Sanders in private, some bad stuff. But let me say it in public. You see, a lot of times it's our reputation. It ain't even about the thing he took from us. It's about the fact he did it out in front of everybody. See, when you're in the nursery, the teacher can tap you on your hand and it don't even hurt. But because all your other little slobbing friends saw it, now you're running home trying to tell your mom the teacher tried to break my arm. And it hurt. We feel ashamed when God comes through and burns things up. Because we feel like other folk are looking at us, and I'm ashamed of that. Yes, so busy trying to keep up appearances that we fail to sense God calling us closer to him. Can I talk in here? This is especially for us folk that we've allowed people to build us up on pedestal and make us seem super spiritual. Super spiritual folk ain't nothing bad ever supposed to happen to you, because you got God on the main line. And I've been talking to God, and God done told me this, and me and God had a little talk about you, and I had a dream. And then when they see smoke coming from your house, it can feel like a judgment, but it's not. Just as God was with the 3 Hebrew boys in the fiery furnace, just as he called Moses from a burning bush, God deals with the righteous with fire. And not all fire is judgment. This brings me to my 4th and final point. The fire of God. When God gets to burning stuff up, it's a call to renewed faith. When was the last time you were brought to the place where you felt like you trusted God just like you did on the day you first confessed it?
Come on.
When was the last time that there was nothing between you and God but love? Where you felt as close to him as you ever have in your whole life. The fire of God is a call to a renewed faith. It's not a call to preach.
Come on, yes. Yes, come on.
See, in the Baptist church, a joker gets saved real good, get his faith renewed real good, it looks so different among the sinners that we immediately put him in the pulpit.
Yes, sir.
Is it all right to preach in here? It's not a call to take any drastic action in your life. It's a call to believe more deeply.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I need you to hear it. One of my fears in my life is to get on up the road and look back over some period of time and say, man, I should have been doing this and I wasn't. Well, why wouldn't you? Because I was worried about this other thing. Well, a lot of times the other thing that you're worried about is the very thing that gets burned up. So God can get you to focus on the essentials. He knows you got an IQ of 80, which means you can't really focus on nothing but for 20 minutes at a time. You get overloaded, man. God got to burn stuff up in your life to simplify it. You see, sometimes we thought we believed, but we really didn't believe. We believe from the comfort of our own surroundings. We believe from the security of a good marriage. We believe from the security of a stable job and a stable income. Lord, all I need is for you to give me this and I can serve you the rest of the days of my life. We believe from the security of good health and strength. But God saw that we were in love not with him, but with all the things he had given us. Can I preach in here? So in order to help us with our faith, God started to take some stuff to help you believe more deeply, to teach you that he can take care of your children, that he can provide for you without this job that you say is so important. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, as I go to my seat, they learned to believe from a fiery furnace. Moses learned to believe standing in the presence of a bush that was burning but not consumed. And Job learned to believe in the goodness of God, sitting in a pile of ashes created by God.
Yes, sir.
Let me say this and I'm gone. A lot of times you don't want to start over because you view life as a race to see who can come up with the most material things. I'm in your prayer closet now, and you telling God you don't want to start over. And you're too old to start over. I'm in my 50s, I'm in my 60s. And God says the only thing you really have is me. And the only thing that connects you to me is faith.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The fact that you feel like I ain't got no house, I'm about to lose my house, I'm about to lose my job, I'm about to lose my retirement. And God says, I'm all of those things to you.
Yes, sir. Yes. Yes.
And for some of you who don't have any of that in your mind, you're trying to get that. Because if I can get that, then that means I'm somebody. And God says, don't confuse me with my works, with what I do for you. You crying about starting over. But when you start over, that's when you see him more clearly. You can see him because of the job, the car, the house, the reputation, the good health, the good looks. You running around praising God for all of that stuff, and God is saying, you still in the nursery. You in kindergarten. I need to show you who I am. Because evidently you believe in nursery rhyme God. when God wanted to promote Job, the first thing Job did is what we all do. He complained. Then he learned not all loss is judgment. Because whatever comes from God is ultimately for my good. And so in the end, Job was being called to believe or to trust God in a new way. And let me just say this. Let me say this and I'm gone. Because some of you have said this too. You've said that God has abandoned you. He says, no, I moved out ahead of you. I'm no longer in the nursery. I'm calling you to a deeper level of faith. And to call you to a deeper level of faith, I had to move away from you. See, when the Lord right there with you, and he answering these little nursery rhyme prayers you throw up, now lay me down to sleep. And it feels like God has abandoned you. And God says he hasn't abandoned you. I've moved on ahead of you. And from that higher ground, I'm calling you to come with me. And to help you come, I need to burn down what's around you. Because that's what's keeping you where you are.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Friends, if you're here this morning, God is not judging you. He's loving you. And he's calling you from up ahead that you might leave the immature place where you are now and come to him. And whatever he has to take from where you are now, he'll do it till you realize your time there is over with. Shall we stand? If God is speaking to your heart, the altar is open for you. The fire of God. You don't go backwards with God.